Hi, and welcome to Decoding AQ, helping you to learn the tools, mindsets, and actions to thrive in an ever-changing world. Hi, and welcome to the next episode of Decoding AQ. With me this morning, I have Pratik Thakker, who's joining us from Tel Aviv in Israel. Welcome.
Hey, how are you, Ross? Thank you for inviting me. It's an absolute pleasure to be part of the show.
Excellent. I'm doing very well. And Pratik is the founder of several tech companies, including Webzoly. It's a customer support, sales, and marketing agency. And as you see, if you're watching the video version, Testlify, which is a talent assessment platform. And in fact, Pratik received the Indian Achievers Award back in 2021. Now been living in Israel for some time, about 8 years, I think. He's in fact Israel's #1 LinkedIn influencer, a TEDx speaker, and was featured in the Times 40 Under 40. So it's really going to be fun to explore your journey. There's been many twists and turns, like in a true roller coaster of life. But my first question for you is, which sold better, firecrackers or pickles?
I love it. I prefer firecrackers. It was my first business, so it is always a good memory when I go back and where I started and what I am now. Every aspect of my journey with different businesses or different hats has helped me to become the person who I am today. So when we see people struggling with success, it's not about success itself. The failures you have along the journeys is something that makes you. So yeah, I love all of the aspects of the first business that I had.
And the entrepreneurial spirit of many young kids, some of it's for survival, some of it's just who they are. And maybe it was perhaps a combination of both for you in terms of paying for clothes and toys to part of your DNA that has evolved over time. Tell me a little bit about some of the interesting twists, particularly around you got involved in the stock market. You had some, scrapes in there. So give us a little bit of background to some of those learnings and lessons that you talk about.
So when I started my journey, I was born and brought up in a middle-class family in Mumbai. So I didn't have much of money crunch that I could not afford things that I wanted. My parents was supporting in that part. But, I grew up seeing my father in business. And my uncle was in business. Most of my family are into business. So my father at that time was trading spices. And kind of growing up and seeing him trading, and every night he used to come with cash collected from customers, and then me and my father used to sit down and count those notes. So that kind of activities really excited me to be in the business. So that's how I started my journey. It's not I wanted a job, but maybe it was in my blood that I wanted to be in business or wanted to be an entrepreneur. But along the way, I realized first business when I did, every business or everything that you do in life has a lesson that helps you become who you want to be in the later stage of life. So I always admired and got inspired by Bill Gates. Why? Because I wanted to be a software engineer. Okay. And I thought being a software engineer, that was, I think, 2000, maybe 20 years ago. Why? Because I felt doing that will make me the richest person in the world, because you can make amazing products if you're an engineer. So I actually did computer science. And honestly, after studying 15 hours a day, I failed. And I kind of dropped out from my engineering. and switched to business side of things because I felt that I was better at like doing business and managing things rather than like, building products myself. Uh, and I realized, you don't have to be an expert or like, engineer to build products. You can have somebody build it for you, and you are better off like, managing the process. So number one lesson in early days. So I followed the path that my heart showed me. And, sometimes what you're passionate about, it's more of like, automatically things happen in your life that drives you to the right direction. And I guess that's what happened with me. So I followed my passion and path. Again, after like few attempts in business, some were successful, some were not. There's one thing that I felt is very crucial that I wanted to learn, which was sales. So anything we do today in our lives, whether I'm speaking on this interview, or I'm speaking with my customer, or going for a date, or going for an interview for a job, or pitching a business idea to investors, anything I'm doing, I'm actually selling myself, right? Everything like anyone is doing is connected to sales somehow. So this is something that I realized at the age of 15, 16 something. And I joined my brother who was into garment industry. And I said, like, he was very good. He's master at like, still like, when I meet him, when he speaks, I'm like kind of so much inspired and like, feel that he is awesome. So I wanted to learn that part, that skill. And I was very introvert person. So that specific thing helped me a lot. So that 2 years of my life in sales, so I was like, taking garment samples and going to stores and showing samples to stores in Mumbai city. It was a hard work, but that helped me master that number one skill, that is speaking. So right now I have confidence speaking with you on podcast, or speaking in front of 1,000 people. It takes practice, it takes efforts, and you have to learn. And after like being after doing this for 100 times, 1,000 times, you kind of master that skill. So yeah, so one thing that I would say, like, if somebody is looking for being successful, so you usually know your end journey, where you want to go. So what it requires to be part of that end journey, some of the key skills that is something will help you become that person you want to be in the next 10 years from now, and master that skill. Educating yourself, any great leaders you can take, right? They spend so much time reading books, and today they spend time reading listening podcasts or watching videos that can actually inspire them, teach them, which they don't know. Yeah, I think maybe uh, uh, it's a simple thing that everybody knows, but it's very hard for executing those things unless and until you're passionate about like achieving bigger dreams. You would kind of give up, but consistency is the key in everything you do. That's what worked for me, and I guess most of the leaders around the world.
A couple of pieces there, this observation that leaders are readers, that we are looking to continually learn. And it's an important part of speaking is listening, and just evolving those skills in tandem, that in order to speak, in order to present, we need to understand who we're talking to, who we're communicating to. Some of that can be through empathy, others can be through lived experience. You can also be asking the right questions and listening throughout that. And I wonder what part where you've said, you identify these skills, you have your goals, is of course we need people around us. We need our cheerleaders, we need our supporters, we need people who are our critics. who have been, you mentioned a couple of role models, brother, Bill Gates, who else has inspired you? And I know, some influential people in your life helped in the transition for moving to Israel, Nancy and various things. So who has been part of that journey that you'd like to share a little bit of insight from them?
Oh my God, there are so many people in my life that has helped me become the person who I am today. But, sometimes you have to get lucky, but luck comes to people who are like, putting efforts. But for me, it came very early in my life. When I was in high school, I met my best friend, Nancy. Turns out to be my wife today. We are together for almost 16 years. So this journey with her, kind of like brought there is like diamond is in like uh, coal mines, basically. That's what they say, right? And you have to like kind of nurture that diamond to become the diamond that person is today, right? So Nancy was that person who actually inspired me every time. So I'm a human being, right? So every time I get disappointed, depressed, I want to give up, right? I'm human being. Sometimes things don't work out the way I want, and I'm pissed. Sometimes I'm angry, and you need somebody, a push, like, keep going, it's okay. Keep going. It's okay. I'm here. This push is something that I would say Nancy has been like key player in my life. And people say that, right, women are behind every successful man. Yeah, and with me it's Nancy. You're finding your wife.
I'm just looking for a picture that I have that I'm going to share with you. It's a quote, and it just made me smile. It's this one: the true indicator of a man's character is the health of his wife. And it comes to that point, doesn't it, that we have these various adages, to go fast, go alone, to go far, go together. And it's so true when we look behind the fanfare surface of the media, of the number one of this in this list, that it takes a village of the support when we have those setbacks, when we're on the edge of overwork, when we've got mental health twists and setbacks, is to be able to have that perspective, to be able to be loved without judgment, without achievement, to just be in that center point of at peace with ourselves, and other people play a huge role in that. And I wonder, how has that sort of influenced your various career choices? Because with infinite possibility, how have these things influenced? Well, what do you choose to do? Why Testlify? Why each of these things? What's led you to some of those decisions?
Maybe I'll go a bit backstory towards my life, because I think your personal life impacts your business life a lot. So there's a story. When I moved to Israel, I was actually, I landed up in like emergency room first day because I had an anxiety attack. It was my first time leaving my hometown country and coming to Israel forever, in a hope of better career. So it was a very emotional day for me. And I struggled with depression and anxiety for next 2.5, 3 years. So that part of my life, when I remember those bad times, she stood with me, right, very strongly. We struggled initially in Israel, building our careers. So my first job was in housekeeping because we wanted to pay bills, right? We want to survive in like one of the most expensive countries in the world. So that's how the journey started. But again, like, you when you are an entrepreneur, you're a fighter within yourself, like, you want to fight the situation. So this really helps, so one thing, you cannot do it alone. You need like a person who supports you and a team that supports you. Now, all of the things I'm doing today with outsourcing, with Testlify, there's one big reason connected to my story, because I have to leave my hometown in the search of better career, better growth. Okay. And the reason I chose Israel, because I felt I had a better opportunity and a better chance to grow in my career. And that's why we decided to move here, right? I don't want anybody making this kind of decision and have to leave their hometown country in the search of career. Now, after 10 years, you just need an internet connection and a laptop to make your life better. No matter where you are, right? You can be in Thailand, Bali, or in India, and you can work for any global company today. So remote working has taken over the world. Now, I love HR space so much because of this reason. And the reason I'm building Webzoly, Testlify, and INSIDEA is one of the brands that something that I'm building. We're building this because I want companies get connected to global talent. And not just like as a freelancer, but as like a full-time employee, so they can have a sustainable job and they can have a sustainable employee, reducing the cost of hire in their hometown, or sorry, in their country. Because in US, it will cost, let's say, $10,000 to hire a developer per month, and versus you can hire $2,000 developers in India. So you save 5 times the cost for your company. And the person in India gets an employment and he's happy, you are happy, and win-win, right? And the best part is that person doesn't have to move to US for a better job. So this is what inspired me to start my businesses in that direction, where I can solve the problem that I went through. Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it, where for many people, we observe something, a hardship or opportunity that shapes our thinking, and then we want to make it better for those that, come next. And the opportunity to then ride a converging technological trend that now with internet connection, with computing, with even the pandemic accelerating the openness to remote working. We've had outsourcing for many decades, and the different thoughts, different stigmas, different technological challenges. Now, as you said, we are a global society, able to work wherever we want to work, and who knows in the future where it won't be just through internet connections, but we'll be able to host an avatar in another location, and we can control that to go and do volunteer work, fight fires, do whatever it may be.
It's already happening. If you use Oculus VR, in metaverse is amazing. I've been doing some trials.
In either the digital world or where they merge together. And so I think this opportunity we're facing right now is a reimagination of what learning is, what work is, how we work and who we work with. And it appears to me a lot of what drives you is to expand people's opportunities and what they are able to contribute to and become. So is there certain, clients, certain teams, certain organizations that you've seen that are really embracing a lot of that transformation and opportunities that you could share perhaps some of the insights from how they've managed to do it, which areas they're working in, and what's been some of the results?
So one of the things, right, with remote working, it created power of globalization and borderless work. I've recently did an TEDx video about the future of work. So if you want to check that out, it's 4 minutes video, something that I covered most of the aspects about remote working. But in terms of companies, so I've been seeing recently a lot of layoffs in bigger enterprises. there is like maybe recession can be one of it, but again, what I personally feel, it won't happen if they would have hired a remote person with like costs which were already less than they are hiring at local stages. Again, local market has to be filled. When you create that borderless experience, anybody can work for any company anywhere in the world. So you have opportunities globally, right? A lot of companies are still struggling with the remote work adoption. And honestly, based on my research and understanding, the amount of resumes that I get every day to work in my company as a remote worker is at least 200 times more than last year. Okay, people want to work remotely, period. Give them their flexibility, or else you would have to anyways look for a better talent, and you will end up after making this decision after 1 year. So you have to change based on the trends are happening within like the industry. So there is one thing, right? Think about like we know like time to travel for remote work and stuff like that. But again, when you look at the productivity, there is a lot of research been there that remote work has helped a lot of companies become more productive versus working in-house. Now, some might say there are like, some of the cultural company culture is missing, people are not meeting people. Yeah, maybe once a month, twice a month, you can have like an office day, but not like, every other day. It's not required. You save a lot of expenses here. And that's what I personally feel. My company is completely remote. I've been working remote for the last 8 years. I had never had problems. People are like, I have people working with me since day one, so they didn't leave me. So the employee leaving, switching companies haven't happened. It's about how the culture you build, how trust you have with those people, how much you appreciate that person, how much they're growing within the organization. Are they learning enough? These are the key aspects that you need to take care as an employer, and automatically things will go in your direction. One of the major things, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, one of the challenges that many are grappling with is this balance between, okay, what's the objectives of the business? And we're trying to bring value, support our customers, and yes, productivity, efficiency, innovation, and equally provide opportunities for their employees to feel that they're learning, they're progressing, but the belonging and connectedness, I think, is still figuring itself out.
It's a story.
Where we have a choice about how we find belonging and connection. So we can find connection via Zoom, and we'll find a different connection if we hang out and had a coffee together, or we'd find different connection if we really like this music or this thing, and we go and experience an event together, that we want to have elements of social connection. And I think we're figuring out what balance we want and when we want that as a society and as organizations. And I think the opportunity is for experimentation to find where that balance is and bring clarity. So if your clarity is you're Elon Musk and you say, Twitter, no remote work and you've all got to be there, or it is, no, you can work from anywhere and we're ditching our offices. You just need the clarity for you to say that resonates with me or it doesn't resonate. It's relevant or irrelevant. And at certain points, the friction comes where there's a conflict of relevance there, I think.
There are a lot of people, they still love going to office, which is fine. Like, you mentioned perfectly well about balance, right? Everything in life needs to have balance. If you don't sleep like 6 hours at least a day, you'll collapse. You need to have balance in sleep. You need to have balance in your diet. You need to have balance in your work. You need a balance in your relationship. Also, that goes with work, right? So if you're not having balance with the remote work versus hybrid work or full-time work in like an office, there's something needs to change now, and companies have to be more adaptable towards this change. One of the things, the reason, I want to go back to Testlify, and it's one of the parts where, remote hiring has been challenging for companies, and finding the talent which will be proactive and not just reactive in terms of feeling connected towards the mission of the company. I was interviewing as an outsourcing person, so much resumes and people, screening resumes and interviewing people. Finding that talent was hard because people were not used to remote working. They don't know what it takes to perfectly work in remote work environment. What is something that employer is expecting, setting this expectation. People are learning still. So finding that right talent was a big challenge. And I partnered with my co-founder Abhishek and Jitain, and they are also into outsourcing in IT sector. And we all have the same challenge. So we build a product for ourselves to assess candidates, to find the right person who not just is a great fit in terms of skills, but also cultural fit, and he knows how remote environment works. And if all of the checkbox are correct, we onboard that person, and it turns out to be a perfect solution, and then we open to the world, and that's how Testlify was born. So again, this came out of a problem that we were facing in our hiring process, and Testlify was born. So it's all connected toward outsourcing, hiring, and remote work, and yeah.
And I think the phases that we're seeing and the cycles that have existed for periods of time is when new technology comes along, we generate opportunities to reimagine the way we want to do things. And for many knowledge workers, remote is an option. For many other industries, construction, healthcare, policing, forces, all sorts of things, where at the moment it doesn't seem to present an easy answer for remote, globalized, distributed ways of still providing the solutions and value. But I think it will evolve in some of those areas as well. We're seeing telemedicine from an in-person to
absolutely
via
I was
digital.
about to say the same, right?
Yeah, but there are still things at the moment where, can I put the stitches in that person's skin remotely? Well, in some places, yes, we can operate robotics and do that. In other areas and other parts of either industry or worlds, there is a desire that, do we end up a little bit like I remember the end of WALL-E, the Disney Pixar film, where we're on these, in effect, floating chairs moving around and doing nothing, because all we're doing is cognitively, operating a robot that does something, our version of ourselves that we've created that does the work, and we then do just play, just entertainment, just hit a tennis ball and become, unhealthy and fat. So I think there is a lot of evolution that we will discover of our society. But I'm interested to look at, maybe a little bit more near term, the next sort of 3 to 5 years, which is still going to be filled with ambiguity, uncertainty, all sorts of pieces. What do you see the best leaders are looking for and organizations are looking for the types of skills or the types of pieces? Are they still it's technical, it's data science, it's these things, or is it ones that can deal with ambiguity, high levels of resilience? What is it that you're seeing are the certain sort of core skills that are most in demand right now?
So majority of market is going towards tech skills, which are currently popular. People are not willing to actually the cost of living is growing significantly everywhere in the world. So in order for them to make a decent living, they need to learn certain skills, right? One of the top ones has been trending for last decade is software development. Then, like, there was a buzzword a few years ago when I started my career as a PPC guy. I was like doing marketing and like, performance marketing, but digital marketing came in, and now you see digital marketers everywhere. So now data scientists, like the big word AI, um, and still web app development is going to be number one moving forward for next 5 years for sure. And this is the only skill, is one of the highest paying ones when you want to work full time for a company at the moment. But that doesn't mean, like, look, I was not like, a good software engineer. So I chose the passion for marketing and business, and I'm doing pretty well. So it's not something that you have to do software development just because it can make you bigger income. But I think you should choose something which you're happy doing, passionate about, and automatically you'll find your way becoming an expert in that specific domain, and you'll probably make more, or maybe 20 times, 30 times more money than you would make in your job as a software developer.
It reminds me, and I've talked about it a lot on the podcast with various people, of the Japanese concept of ikigai, of this balance of looking at what do you love doing, what are you good at, what will the world pay you for, each of these aspects to find that. And that's uniquely personal to people, that they can discover through experimentation. I think one of the interesting areas is where people go through a transition in their career. So they might have had a particular area. I honed in on my software. It was C++, or it was a language that now has been replaced with Java, or it's this that now being shifted. Is how long does something I've learned still remain relevant, that maybe not too long in the future I'll be able to just ask Alexa or Google Home or whatever to say, build me a web app that does this, this, and this. And I won't need a developer because it will be a developer who's created a developer in a software, right?
Exactly.
So there will always be that evolution. So I think this openness to learn, to explore, that view used to be generational. I learned this, I just need to move up the ladder slightly, manage a few people, and I can utilize that for a long time. I think we may see, maybe not over the next 5 years, but maybe if we extend it slightly longer, where what we believed and we trained and educated ourselves in is shortening its period of value. And I think there are some other core skills, coming back to where you started: sales, good listening, communication, getting along with other human beings, is perhaps underestimated in a tech world. I wonder what your thoughts are on that.
The biggest money generating skill. Can you guess?
Hit me with it.
Networking.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever I'm today, and like, whatever money I made, whatever awards I've got, or following I have, it's because I learned one skill which made me who I am today, is networking. I kind of mastered how I can actually network with people. Now, networking is not something that you do forcefully. It comes naturally. You genuinely are interested in other people. And the fundamental of networking is you're always willing to help people in your network. Automatically, whatever you are selling or doing, people want to buy from you because you have built that trust and relationship that will translate into business. Now, this is the only thing will help you in whatever you do. If you are in a job and if you're not good at networking, you might struggle, like, towards, like, going up the ladder. But if you are good at like this skill, you will possibly, you might have seen in your life, there are a lot of people they're not that skillful in terms of actual things which they do, but they're very good at like, building connections, very good at like communicating, translating the values. And that people are like 10 times ahead of us because of that skill. So I personally feel this is the way to go.
It reminds me of a good friend of mine, a chap called Joe Polish. And in fact, the documentary about him was about connection and connected. And his recent book that he's just launched is What's in It for Them? Because we often have this, what's in it for me, just that shift. And he's talking about the power of networking. How do you build relationships that really matter? And that phrase of what's in it for them as the approach. And he's an incredible individual and guy. He runs the Genius Network, for example, Genius X. He's a big passion about addiction and addiction recovery. And the opposite of addiction is connection. And to be connected with people. So I really, it made my whole body react when you said that about the relationships, connection and network, that it just resonated very deeply for me. Now, I've got a quick question.
Yeah.
If we hear that and we conceptually acknowledge and say, yes, Pratik, I agree with that, what do I do to actually help improve that? You've got nearly 200,000 followers on LinkedIn. How do we manage and nurture a powerful network? And maybe what are some of the things that you've done or things you could advise others?
So here's a powerful tip. Okay. So it started with my first post on LinkedIn. Okay. It just got 1 like. It was my wife. So, when you begin something, so then I went to the world and declared that I'll show up for 1,000 days. I was into B2B marketing, and I knew from day one, if I want to sell my services, LinkedIn is the best place. So find where your people hang out. Okay. Number 1. Now, that your people hang out on LinkedIn, you need to actually make a list of people who you want to network with. Okay. Now, although the end goal might be like, selling your services, but it doesn't work like that. You might have seen a lot of spam messages, buy this, buy that, come for a demo. Doesn't work. You have to be consistent on the platform. Now, anything you do in life, if you are consistent, automatically you see results. Okay. So my father taught me one thing: anything you do, it takes 3 years, 1,000 days, right? So I challenge myself to be consistent on the platform for 1,000 days, 10 days, 50 days, 100 days, 150 days. Nothing happened. No magic. Again, being into marketing, there's one skill that I learned is optimization. No matter, let's say you start something, but you keep on doing something the same way, you won't get results, but unless and until you improve yourself, right? So marketing teaches you to optimize your campaigns constantly. So what I was doing is, like, when I was doing certain things on LinkedIn, like, posting, reaching out to people, commenting, liking, I was kind of going back previous day and seeing what mistakes I made and how I can improve to go viral. Okay, this was like the question that came to my mind every single day. I changed it. I think around 160, 170 days, one of my posts went viral, 5 million views. And that built that confidence that I needed for like kickstart. And 1 year ago, I was 50,000. And in just so that 50,000 took almost 3 years. Okay. But after 50,000, 200K was just like 9 or 10 months. So the amount of like spike I got once I was able to build that trust among the community. Again, you said very perfect thing, what's in it for them. So when I post something, I think whether I'm inspiring them, whether I'm educating them, I'm adding value through their newsfeed. If the answer is no, I don't post it. And you need to think like, although sometimes you post something, but again, you have to also think about algorithm, if it won't go viral, it won't help you. No, the best part about relationship, okay? Think about you are on Facebook, and you are connected with like 200 friends and family. And if they post a picture on Instagram or Facebook, and let's say you don't like, or if you posted something and they don't like, and they're your best friend, oh, he didn't like my picture. Okay, you have that question, and a lot of people will relate to this. Similarly, like, it happens with others. If you don't like their pictures, they think the same because you're connected closely with them. Similarly, like, in networking on LinkedIn, I'm connected to so many people. I have literally made a list of people that I want to engage with. So I have team of 3 team members who actually go every day to that specific people and see if they posted something to engage with them. So that every time I like or comment something, they remember me. So you have to have touch points with that specific person to build that relationship and rapport. It takes time. Okay, it doesn't happen overnight. So let's say you engage with them 30, 40, 50 times, they remember. The Pratik, outsourcing guy, he's a charting expert. Automatically they build trust, and whatever you are selling, you will be on top of their head. Like, you want to drink something, like, something cold, you think of Coca-Cola. Like, that's the kind of hammering or nurturing that they did with their marketing so for so many years. So this is what you have to do with your personal branding and networking.
It's interesting taking that marketing approach to networking, thinking about optimizing, thinking strategically of who are the key influencers that you might then want to focus more time on. And then the strategy of the campaigns being around, how can I add value? If I'm not adding value to them, what's the point in me doing this? It's just noise. It's just, fodder. So I think that's a really, strategic approach that is then understanding the effects of mathematics and compounding. So this, continual consistency, your dad mentioned 1,000 days, doing this, that it
I literally announced that I will do it for 1,000 days. And so I made everyone accountable in my network that I'll show up, right?
Yeah.
Would you do that for like going to a gym, that I will show up 1,000 days? It's very hard decision. It was 10 times more difficult for me because I was spending 4 hours a day on LinkedIn. But
it's what are we willing to do? What effort are we willing to put in for a future result? And the time to, value is often we need this short-term hit. I want to do something. I want the value instantly. I want it within minutes or hours. But what are we willing to put in that the reward comes maybe even hour after our lifetime? And, all of that comes back to connecting with why are we here? What are we doing? And what kind of thing do I want to leave behind? And so before I come back to that, I want to, you mentioned about going to the gym. I do remember in my 20s that I made a commitment with another friend that we would go to the gym every day for a year. And we lived about 8 miles apart. And we were a member of a gym that had multiple locations, one near him, one near me. And on every other day, we would knock on the door, 6 a.m. To take that person in, and we'd spend an hour. And then the next day he'd knock on my door and we'd go to the one that was near me. And I remember if it had just been me and I'd have made the commitment to myself, I'd have gone, oh, I'm feeling a bit duvet day today. I'm a bit tired. I had a late night, whatever it be, I'm not going to do it. But because I'd made that commitment to my friend, and as soon as it snowballed and you've done a few, and it was like, I can't let him down, I've got to be there, and vice versa. And we made it for the 365 days. And in fact, when it wasn't open a few days for various reasons, we still picked each other up, went to the park, did different things. We didn't train every single day. It was about the commitment to that activity of our health. Of those things. And I have just some very beautiful memories, of listening to Bill Withers, albums in the car with him. And he's since 20 years, moved to the States.
Now you thank you, like I thank myself so much, that I did that, similarly, you have the same experience, right? It's all about like, taking action. People know these things. We are not like philosophers. People know consistency, discipline, and all of the other gurus that they say. But one thing is what matters is like we acted on it and we did it. And that's what really matters. Every decision we make and go towards that goal is something.
So have your support, have your cheerleader, have your accountability buddy, because we need that when it's tough, when there's other things that spiral around in our monkey mind, in our bodies, whatever it is, that say, just take a break. Now, I also have something else. I have an app called Time Hop.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know if you've come across it, but it essentially goes and looks at on this day at various points throughout, and it looks at the photos you've taken, past posts you've had, or whatever.
Wow.
And it's a really interesting reminder for me of, on this day, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, posts that were made. So it connects to all of those things. And at the very end of each day, when you look at it, it comes up and it says time hops in a row. And I don't know if you can see that because it's...
Yeah, I see that. But I love if you can share that app.
Yeah, so it's 2,182 days in a row. So over 5 years, that ritual practice for me of reflecting on what progress have I made. Whilst I have all these goals, all these things in the future of, I'm never going to achieve that. It's always moving. I'm always making it bigger. But this sense of gratitude of, wow, 4 years ago, I was there. Where I've come a long way, because we can often lose connection with where we've come from in our narrative and story. So it keeps me looking at and measuring progress against the past, not progress to a goal that is ever moving and ever growing, because every time I get close to it, I make a bigger one, So that's been an interesting one. And that consistency, I think, is a balance, isn't it? Because we can feel, oh God, I've got to do it. And if I had a day off from it, well, it's broken. Well, it doesn't have to be like that. We can have the odd forgiveness days of certain things, but I thought I'd just share that with you.
That's perfect. I think I would love this app. I love actually reflecting in my reflecting of a day or some memories. I take a short walk with my own wife for almost 30 minutes to an hour in the evening. So that is my time of the day. This is the number one tip. Most of the times we are surrounded with technology and we don't speak with our partners or people around us. So this time actually is a stress reliever, or because I take a lot of meetings. I'm like managing people. It is like my brain is exhausted, and when I talk to the person I care about, automatically it eases me down. And this really helps me keep going in my journey. So yeah, this is something that you can do. It's an actionable tip.
And you get a multiplier effect by doing that, walking in nature. My best thing I had with my wife, we've been together 18 years, and we've always had pets. And when I met her, she had a black lab and 2 cats. And we now have 2 dogs. One's a rescue, and literally every day they have to be walked without fail, wind, rain, whatever it is. And so if that means I'm up at 6 o'clock in the morning and I'm putting all the waterproofs on to go and do it, and whilst we support each other because we both have busy lives, we will always prioritize trying to do that together. It doesn't always happen, but every week there will be moments that we're walking for an hour together. And it is, like you said, so important to just get in perspective as we come to a close, because every podcast I have, I know those who listen to this regularly, time flies. I enjoy just learning and building relationships. But I ask a question at the end for everyone, Pratik, and it's, when was the last time you did something for the first time, and what was it? So this is an element about curiosity and how do we live a playful life. So have a think about that.
Maybe I'll share my experience about my first speech on the stage. It was, I think it was sixth grade something. I don't properly remember the grade, but yeah. And I was very nervous. And it was the worst experience of my life because it didn't go well. I had a biggest failure. And for next 10 years, I was so scared to speak in front of people because of that experience. So sometimes failures create that kind of barrier around you. So I was kind of fighting myself, to become like a speaker uh, from very young age. And to break that barrier, I had to do a lot of practice and go out of my comfort zone. So that memory actually, kind of inspires me. And like, when I go back and think about it, there's so many barriers around us in whatever we do. Today, I'm doing something and I won't have a good experience, but not necessarily mean that it's not good for me. It's just because I'm not ready right now and I have to practice more. So if I would have not wasted more time, I would have done it more earlier. So yeah, this was like, bitter but sweet memory for me that I think most of us can relate to. Yeah,
It's true, isn't it? When we think about what shapes us, the experiences that we have shape us, and do we allow that to quash or inspire? Does it get us more and more focused of things, or does it bring us into a lantern view to, okay, I'll give that another go? I go and play golf. Oh, had a bad round, never going to play it again. Or, oh, I'll give it another go. And I enjoy the act, not necessarily just the result of some of these things.
last part about like, what I wanted to share is when I was growing up, my mindset was to make money, like, aggressive in terms of growing my career and like building wealth. But I realized, when I moved to Israel, I was sick, and I realized after that, money isn't everything. The relationship you build and the journey you're on. So I started enjoying my life more after that. I take like 2 months vacation, kind of like we work remotely. We go to Thailand and anywhere in the world together. We don't have kids yet, so yeah, we can do that. But we love to like, explore and enjoy the journey. And we treat this business as a game, okay? So you don't feel depressed or demotivated. You're sometimes like losing a game, but next time you play, you win. So it's part of the game and part of the journey. So, and destination won't matter. You will like, let's say you achieve something, you will celebrate for one day, but you celebrate this journey, you celebrate it every day. So this is important.
Yeah, very important. Wise words. To find the celebration is a daily practice. To find the gratitude. And
I love your idea of like, app that you do. This is an best advice that I will like take.
As a team, we have every Monday a stand up, and everyone has to share 3 gratitude focuses. What's been an achievement, someone else, a thank, every week, so that we have that reflection of progress and gratitude. Super important. If people want to get in touch with you, is it LinkedIn? Is that the best way? Follow you on there? What's the best way to get in touch with you and contact?
You can actually so on LinkedIn, if you message me, I respond to each and every messages, even though like I get volumes, but I have people to support, and if something important is required my attention, I actually personally respond to those messages. So if you need something, please feel free to reach out me on LinkedIn. There's also a form on my page. You can just fill out with a specific question you have, and it will go directly to my email.
Wonderful. It's been an absolute pleasure to hang out.
Much appreciate your time. This didn't feel like, an interview, or it was really beautiful conversation, a lot of reflection, a lot of learning, even like, a lot of things that I discovered in your life, which were inspiring and helpful. So yeah, thank you so much.
Cool. Thanks for hanging out. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Do you have the level of adaptability to survive and thrive the rapid changes ahead? Has your resilience got more comeback than a yo-yo? Do you have the ability to unlearn in order to reskill, upskill and break through? Find out today and uncover your adaptability profile and score, your AQ. Visit AQai.io to gain your personalized report across 15 scientifically validated dimensions of adaptability. For a limited time, enter code PODCAST65 for a complimentary AQME assessment. AQai, transforming the way people, teams, and organizations navigate change. Thank you for listening to this episode of Decoding AQ. Please make sure you subscribe on your favorite podcast directory, and we'd love to hear your feedback. Please do leave a review and be sure to tune in next time for more insights from our amazing guests.